Now, the nightmare of anyone that's working with audio is, of course, that you've done your interview, you've done your recording, and afterwards you notice that it doesn't sound very good. That, for example, the audio is too quiet. That really isn't nice because, first of all, you might need to re-record everything you've done, and in the worst case you can't re-record everything. If you've interviewed someone, for example, with a tight time schedule, or maybe someone important that you won't see again, that isn't an option. And sometimes it's also not an option for you to re-record whatever you were saying, and of course it's also not very motivating to do it again. And the first take might also be such a nice take, that if you re-record yourself it just won't sound as nice. So my first tip would be to, when you're recording, try and pay as much attention as you can to the whole process. So if you're using, for example, a mobile phone, make sure that you are close enough to the microphone, maybe even use an external microphone if that's an option, or the microphone on headphones that you could just plug into your phone. And if you're using a audio recorder, you can also manually set the input and test it first. And either way you choose, something I can really recommend is please, please, please use headphones when recording. That way you really just also hear what your recording is sounding like. You can tell straight away if you're maybe too loud or too quiet. And another important factor when recording is also the location. So if you're recording in your room, you'll of course not notice, if you're not wearing headphones, normal sounds that we're used to. For example, the ticking of a clock, or maybe the bubbling in a heater. We're just used to those, we don't notice those, but you really will hear them in your recording. And if you wear headphones while you're recording, you're just more likely to also notice these sounds that you don't want in there. So definitely wear headphones. Now we're going to assume, though, that even though you did everything correct, you notice that your recordings are just too quiet. Now, the good news is you don't need to re-record. There is an option in Audacity to boost our audio, and it basically does everything for us, which is great. Now, I'm just going to select this first track. You can select any bit that you need to be boosted, so I could also select these both at the same time, but I'm just going to take this one, so we also have a before and after. I'm going to highlight it. So I pulled, along with the selection tool I selected, we're going to go into Effects, and then Amplify. So, and now we get a window here. What is this saying? It's saying that if we push OK, Audacity is going to amplify our track with 14.3 decibels. That is Audacity calculating how far it can possibly amplify or push without clipping our audio. So you can see here, we don't allow clipping. Do not push this here. Make sure this is not pushed. It shouldn't be by default, because what clipping means is that it will allow bits of the audio to get cut off to just make it louder, essentially, to make the whole thing louder. And you might have bits where you're talking, for example, just the word bits, that will be a peak in the audio there. You'll see that B would be much louder, and what it would do if it clipped, it would cut off the top of the B, because it would be raising the whole audio and not just the B area. So you'd essentially have a bit of your recording missing, which you don't want. So make sure that is not ticked. Push OK, so just let it choose that for you. It knows what it's doing. Wow, look at that. You see how it jumped up, and it's much louder, and we can already tell just visually a big difference. And let's just give it a listen.
This is a test recording. Welcome to the Audacity tutorial.
Now that was a major difference. So in this case, you could hear that there's also a bit of white noise that came with it. That is just because the louder, and that's something that you should just also think about, the louder you boost your audio, the more you boost it, the more there's this kind of surface noise, and that's normal, every recording has it, and that will just also get louder. So especially if you're using a phone, or basically not a professional microphone, there'll be more of this white noise than usual, and the louder you push a recording, the louder the white noise gets too. So that's just something to go by ear. If you now notice that the white noise
This is a test recording.
is way too much, then you could also just change the input a bit. So I'll just show you how to do that. We'll just push undo here. It's not amplified anymore. We'll click amplify, and we just heard 14.3. That was a bit too much. You could also, in that case, just say 9 or 8.7. And it boosts it.
This is a test recording.
With not as much white noise. So that's just something to go by ear. I would let Audacity choose first, give it a listen, see how it sounds, and if you notice it's not very good, then you can always adjust by hand, like I just showed you.